Lily Jensen's world revolved around music, specifically the echoes of rock and roll's past. At 20 years old, a history major with a minor in ethnomusicology, she spent her summers interning at the National Music Archive. In Nashville, most interns dreaded the back rooms, the endless cataloging of dusty donations, but Lily thrived there. Each forgotten record sleeve, every faded concert poster felt like a whisper from another era, a story waiting to be told. Her current assignment was less glamorous, sorting through a recent massive donation of Elvis Presley memorabilia. It wasn't the iconic jumpsuits or gold records. This was the spurs. Don't get too excited, Lily Bell. Professor Davies, her kindly silver-haired supervisor, had chuckled that morning. It's mostly old fan mail, some duplicate photos, maybe a worn-out golf glove. Nothing groundbreaking. Lily, however, believed that groundbreaking discoveries often hid in plain sight, tucked away in the least glamorous corners. So, armed with white gloves and a meticulous eye, she delved into Box 37B. It was a treasure trove of the mundane, crumpled handkerchiefs, a few dried flower petals pressed between two album sleeves, a stack of unopened fan letters from the early 70s. Each item, no matter how insignificant, gave her a flicker of connection to the legendary king. She imagined him holding these items, his fingers brushing against the fabric, his eyes scanning the words. Hours blurred into a rhythm of careful unwrapping and cataloging. The fluorescent lights hummed, and the air smelled faintly of aged paper and something akin to old roses. Lily was nearing the bottom of the box when her fingers brushed against something hard and leathery tucked beneath a pile of concert programs. It wasn't a record nor a book. It was a small, worn leather journal, about the size of her hand. The cover was unadorned, the leather smoothed and darkened with age, bearing no title or inscription. It looked utterly out of place among the glossy souvenirs. Curiosity piqued. Lily lifted it. It felt heavier than it looked. Clasp, a simple brass hook, was tarnished but still held firm. Professor Davies said nothing groundbreaking, she muttered to herself, but her heart had already started a different rhythm. This wasn't a commercial item. This felt personal, very personal. She unhooked the clasp slowly, a tremor of anticipation running down her arm. The journal opened with a soft crackle, revealing pages filled with handwritten script. It wasn't immediately recognizable as lyrics, not in the neatly typed studio-ready format she was used to seeing. This was different. Scrawled lines, crossouts, arrows pointing to margin notes. It looked like a mind at work, raw and unfiltered, and the handwriting unmistakably Elvis's. She'd studied enough of his letters and autographs to know his distinctive loops and angles. "Wow," she breathed a quiet exclamation, lost in the vastness of the archive. This was no golf glove, this was something real, something intimate. She carefully turned a few pages. Some lines were clearly fragments of well-known songs, but others were completely unfamiliar, weaving in and out of the familiar ones like secret tributaries. And then she noticed something else. Interspersed among the words, almost hidden in plain sight, were tiny recurring symbols. A small five-pointed star, a looping wave, a single stylized feather. They appeared deliberately, almost strategically placed. Her mind, trained in pattern recognition and historical analysis, instantly flagged them. They felt like breadcrumbs leading somewhere unknown. Professor Davies' words about nothing groundbreaking echoed ironically in her ears. Lily suddenly felt as if she had stumbled upon a conversation not meant for public ears, a private whisper from the king himself, hidden in plain sight for decades. A shiver of excitement, mixed with a profound sense of responsibility, ran down her spine. The dust-covered box had indeed yielded a secret, and it was just waiting for someone to finally listen. Lily carried the leather-bound journal as if it were a fragile bat, which in a way it was. Back at her desk, she carefully laid it open. Under the soft glow of her task lamp, her white-gloved fingers hovering over the yellowed pages, this wasn't merely a collection of rough lyrics, it was a labyrinth. The first 2 pages confirmed her initial suspicion. Early drafts of hits like "Can't Help Falling in Love" and "Suspicious Minds" were interspersed with philosophical musings. Snatches of poetry and what looked like personal prayers. The little 5-pointed star, not a regular star but one with slightly elongated top point, appeared most frequently. It was usually tucked beside a specific word or phrase, or sometimes at the end of a line that seemed to drift away from the song's main theme. Take, for instance, a draft of "Burning Love." Amidst the fiery declaration, there went in several times, "My soul is a desert searching for the spring." Beside the word "spring," a tiny star was drawn. This line had never made it into the final version. Why, and what did spring mean in this context? Was it water, rejuvenation? A place, she found a similar pattern with the looping wave symbol. It often accompanied words related to movement, water, or even emotion. In a fragment resembling, "Are you lonesome tonight?" Instead of just the moon, there was a mention of the river's long sigh, with the wave symbol beside it. Again, the stylized feather was the most elusive, appearing less often, but always beside a word Lily couldn't immediately connect to the surrounding text. Once it was next to "whisper," another time next to "release." Lily started a new notebook, meticulously copying the unusual phrases, the symbols, and the page numbers. She cross-referenced them with the known lyrics of the songs they seemed to be related to. The more she compared, the more convinced she became that these weren't just random thoughts. This was a private code. He wasn't just writing songs, she murmured to herself, her brow furrowed in concentration. He was communicating something else to himself, to someone else, or to the universe. Captivating part was the emotional resonance she felt from the words. They weren't just the public Elvis, the charming, confident performer. These words revealed a more vulnerable, searching soul. A man grappling with fame, faith, and perhaps a deeper yearning. The lines that never made it into the songs often hinted at a quiet desperation or a profound spiritual hunger. She stayed late that night, the archive growing silent around her, save for the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. Her initial excitement had morphed into a consuming fascination. This wasn't just an academic puzzle. It felt like a personal invitation. An invitation to understand the man behind the legend, not through the lens of biographies or documentaries, but through his own unedited thoughts. The challenge, however, was immense. Elvis wrote hundreds of songs, and his personal life was a public spectacle. To decipher this code, she needed to connect these cryptic snippets to something tangible, something beyond the pages of the journal. She needed a key. Her mind raced through possibilities. Were the symbols a personal shorthand? Did they refer to specific people, places, or events? Could they even be musical notations, indicating a specific rhythm or melody he imagined? The sheer volume of his work, combined with the scattered nature of the clues, made the task daunting, but Lily wasn't deterred. The faint scent of old leather and Elvis's distinctive handwriting filled her senses, pulling her deeper into the mystery. She knew with a certainty that hummed in her bones that she was on the verge of uncovering something truly extraordinary. It was time to involve Professor Davies, whether he believed her or not. The first enigma had been laid bare, and it was calling her forward. The next morning, Lily approached Professor Davies' office with a mix of nerves and unwavering conviction. She clutched a leather journal now carefully placed in an archival-safe box as if it held the very last drop of water in the desert. Professor Davies, a man whose life revolved around the meticulously documented facts of music history, listened patiently. As Lily, her words tumbling out in a rush of excitement, explained her discovery. "Professor, it's not just a lyric book," she insisted, placing the box on his polished mahogany desk. It's like a cipher. A personal code." He adjusted his spectacles, his expression a polite blend of amusement and skepticism. "Lily, Belle, dear girl," he said gently. Elvis was a prolific joker, but also a rather chaotic one. Many artists scribble out ideas, personal thoughts, things that never make it to the final cut. It's part of the creative process, those symbols, just doodles likely. "They're recurring," Lily countered, opening the journal to a page she had marked. "Look here, beside searching for the spring, the star, and here in another entry, completely different context, but again, a deeply personal line. A quiet harbor calls for me, with the same star." She pointed to the meticulously copied entries in her own notebook, showing the pattern. "It's too consistent to be random, and they only appear with these very specific, often spiritual or introspective lines, not with the typical love song lyrics." Professor Davies leaned closer, his eyes scanning the pages. He picked up his own magnifying glass, a common tool for examining old manuscripts. He focused on the tiny star, then the looping wave, then the feather. He traced the lines of Elvis's distinctive script. "Whom?" he murmured, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "You're right. The lines where these symbols appear are certainly less conventional for his public persona." Lily pressed on, her voice gaining confidence. "And the handwriting itself? It's looser, more immediate than other lyric drafts I've seen. This feels like he wasn't writing for an audience or a producer. He was writing for himself." He closed the journal, tapping his fingers on its cover. "Even if there's a pattern, Lily, what would it mean?" "A secret message." "About what?" Elvis was a superstar, not a spy. His life was an open book, albeit a heavily edited one. His skepticism was rooted in years of dealing with fan theories and sensational claims. "Not a spy, no," Lily agreed. "But what if it's not about secrets in the scandalous sense? What if it's about the real Elvis, the man behind the myth? Maybe he was trying to express something deeper, something he couldn't put into public words but needed to write down." For him, Professor Davies paused, considering her words. Lily's passion was infectious, and her detailed observations were hard to dismiss entirely. He admired her dedication and sharp intellect. "All right, Lily," he said, a flicker of genuine intrigue replacing his skepticism. "Let's assume for a moment you're onto something. How would one even begin to decode such a personal language? It's not like there's a Rosetta Stone for Elvis Presley's inner thoughts. I think the clues might be in the lyrics themselves, or even in his life," Lily replied, her eyes gleaming. "The words associated with the symbols spring, harbor, river, whisper, release, they all sound like longing, like a search for peace or escape. And the symbols, a star for guidance, a wave for journey or emotion, a feather for lightness or spirituality." He leaned back in his chair, stroking his chin. "Hypothetically speaking, if these are indeed references, they would have to be to something specific in his life or his belief system, something he held dear that the public might not have known about." Picked up the journal again, flipping through it more slowly this time, his professional historian's eye now fully engaged. Perhaps his roots, his early life in Tupelo, or his spiritual side, which was always complex. Or Memphis, Lily suggested softly. So many of the song fragments and personal notes seemed to subtly reference places there. Not Graceland, but smaller, more private spots. His childhood home, maybe, or a church, or even a park. Professor Davies looked at her, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "Memphis," he mused. "That's a rather large haystack for a tiny needle, Lily, but it's a starting point. This could be a wild goose chase, Lily Bell. But if it's not..." He paused, the weight of the possibility hanging in the air. "If it's not, then you might just have uncovered something truly remarkable. Show me all the entries with the star symbol, Let's see if there's a common thread beyond your initial observations. The skepticism hadn't vanished entirely, but it had certainly fractured. The hunt was officially on. The star symbol Lily and Professor Davies discovered was indeed the most prevalent. It often appeared next to words or phrases that evoked a sense of true north, a guiding principle, a quiet hope, or a place of solace. As they meticulously catalogued each instance, a pattern began to emerge, subtle at first, then increasingly clear. Many of the star-marked entries seemed to point towards locations in Memphis, but not the famous, tourist-heavy ones. Draft of In the Ghetto. But he wrote, the quiet echo of Elm Street's gentle curve where the willow branches weep. Beside willow branches, a star. Elm Street exists in Memphis, but it's not a prominent landmark associated with him. Professor Davies found another. Here, in what looks like a devotional poem, he writes, my soul finds peace by the old stone wall, where silence listens and memories call. They searched historical maps of Memphis, but an old stone wall was too generic. The more they delved, the more it felt like Elvis had left behind a breadcrumb trail, not for the world to follow, but for someone quiet enough, perceptive enough, to pick up. He wasn't hiding a scandal, he was hiding a sanctuary. This is fascinating, Lily. Professor Davies admitted his initial skepticism, now fully replaced by intellectual curiosity. But these are incredibly vague. Elm Street's gentle curve, an old stone wall. How would one ever pinpoint these places? Maybe they are linked to a deeper feeling. But what if they are real places? Places he went to where he felt that peace. He wrote about. Summer break was approaching. Lily had planned to stay in Nashville, continuing her internship, but the journal had ignited a new purpose. Professor, I think I need to go to Memphis, she declared one afternoon. I can't just read about this in a library. I need to feel it, to walk where he walked, see what he saw. Professor Davies considered her request. A research trip, you mean? That's a rather ambitious undertaking for an undergraduate, Lily. It's more than that, she confessed. It feels personal, like he's inviting me to understand him better beyond the glitter and the crowds, to see the man who wrote these quiet, searching words. He saw the unwavering determination in her eyes. All right, he conceded with a smile. I'll arrange for some archive access for you there. Some contacts. But be sensible, Lily. Don't go chasing ghosts. You're looking for historical context, not a seance. Armed with the journal, her meticulously copied notes, and Professor Davies' contacts, Lily made the drive to Memphis a week later. The city shimmered under the late spring sun, a vibrant mix of blues, soul, and rock and roll history. She visited Graceland, feeling the familiar awe, but her true mission lay elsewhere. She started with Elm Street. It was a quiet residential area, lined with modest homes and mature trees. She walked its length, trying to imagine Elvis here escaping the roar of fame. She didn't find weeping willows, but she did notice a small community park nestled discreetly between two houses, almost hidden by overgrown shrubs. It had a dilapidated wooden fence, not an old stone wall, but there was a quiet, forgotten feel to it. It sparked a thought. Later, she spoke to an old archivist at the Memphis Public Library, a friend of Professor Davies. The archivist, a kind woman named Martha, listened to Lily's theory with a knowing smile. Elvis was a complicated man, dear, Martha said, her voice raspy with age. He loved the spotlight, but he craved peace even more. People forget that he was always looking for a quiet corner. Lily showed her the notes about the old stone wall and weeping willows. Martha's eyes lit up. Ah, the garden, she whispered. He'd sneak in sometimes when he needed to clear his head. Lily's heart pounded. This was it. A concrete lid, the old stone wall, the weeping willow. They weren't just poetic metaphors, they were real. and they pointed to a specific place, a place of peace for a young Elvis, a place he continued to carry in his heart, immortalizing it in the secret language of his lyrics. The chase was no longer abstract. It was leading her to a forgotten sanctuary. The address Martha provided led Lily to a part of Memphis she hadn't seen before, a few blocks away from the bustling Beale Street, yet seemingly a world apart. The Lauderdale Courts housing project, though renovated, still stood, its red brick walls echoing with history. Adjacent to it, nestled between a renovated community center and a small grocery store, was a plot of land that seemed to defy the urban sprawl. It was an old community garden, much smaller than Lily had imagined, and definitely neglected. Weeds thrived between crumbling raised beds, and many of the trellises lay broken. But there it was, a low stone wall, moss-covered and partially collapsed in places, running along one side. And in a corner, reaching towards the sky with graceful drooping branches, was a magnificent ancient weeping willow. Its leaves shimmering green in the afternoon sun, a wave of profound emotion washed over Lily. This forgotten, unassuming place, marked by a simple stone wall and a weeping willow, was the harbor and the spring Elvis had written about. It was the quiet echo, and the place where silence listens. He hadn't just passed through this garden. He had felt it deeply enough to embed it into his most private thoughts. As Lily walked slowly through the overgrown paths, the hum of city life faded, replaced by the gentle rustle of the willow's leaves and the buzz of a lone bee. She noticed a weathered wooden bench tucked beneath the willow, almost swallowed by overgrown bushes. She gently cleared away the debris and sat down, pulling out Elvis's journal. She found the entries with the star symbol and read them aloud in a low voice, letting the words resonate in the very place they were conceived. My soul is a desert, searching for the spring. A quiet harbor calls for me, where silence listens and memories call. Quiet echo of Elm Street's gentle curve, where the willow branches weep. It was as if she was hearing Elvis's true voice for the first time, not filtered through a microphone or a publicist, but raw and honest, speaking directly from his quiet inner world. He wasn't just a performer. He was a man seeking solace, grounding himself in the quiet beauty of a forgotten garden. As she sat there, a wizened old man with kind eyes and a worn straw hat emerged from a small shed at the back of the garden. He was carefully trimming a rose bush, his movements slow but deliberate. He noticed Lily and offered a tentative smile. "Afternoon, young lady," he said, his voice raspy. "Don't see many folks out here these days. Place ain't what it used to be." Lily explained. She was a student researching the history of the neighborhood. "I heard a famous person used to come here," she ventured, hoping he might know. The old man chuckled. "Just sit and look at the flowers, or stare up at that old willow." Said it helped him think, helped him remember who he was before all the fuss. Lily's eyes widened. He came here even after he was famous? Oh yes, the old man nodded. He loved this place, said it was the only place where he felt truly free, truly quiet. Said it reminded him of the simple things. He even wrote a few little poems in a notebook out here. Once I heard Mrs. Johnson tell my mama. Private things, she said, just for himself. Not just a place, but a feeling, a deep emotional connection that Elvis had preserved through symbols and words. The garden wasn't just a location, it was a metaphor for his yearning for peace, his escape from the pressures of stardom. He poured his deepest, most vulnerable self into the pages of that journal. And the key to understanding it was here, in this humble, hidden garden. Lily finally felt she was standing on the precipice of understanding the true heart of Elvis Presley. Armed with the profound understanding gleaned from the hidden garden and the old man's words, Lily returned to Nashville, her heart brimming with a newfound clarity. The journal entries, once cryptic, now glowed with meaning. She went straight to Professor Davies, barely containing her excitement. "Professor, it's not just a code for a place," she explained, spreading out her notes on his desk. Images of the garden displayed on her tablet. It's a code for a feeling, for his deepest, most private yearning for peace and authenticity. The garden was his anchor, his true north. She showed him the pictures of the willow and the stone wall. The old man I met there confirmed it. Elvis used to sneak away to this very garden, even after he was famous, to find peace, to reconnect with his roots. He called it the only place he felt truly free. Professor Davies listened, his face a mixture of awe and growing excitement. So the star symbol. It represents this personal sanctuary, this inner peace he sought. Exactly, Lily affirmed. And it's woven into the lyrics in plain sight. Take "Can't Help Falling in Love." Everyone knows it as a quintessential love song, but look at this early draft from the journal. She pointed to a passage he wrote. "Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling. So it goes. Some things are meant to be, but here he had, like a soul flows surely to its peace. Darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to release." He changed soul to river and peace to sea for the final version. It's subtle, but it transforms the meaning. It's not just about romantic love. It's about finding one's ultimate belonging, one's spiritual home. Professor Davies gasped softly. "Good heavens, Lily, you're suggesting—" He deliberately embedded a spiritual or deeply personal meaning within his most popular love songs, shifting the words just enough to make them palatable for the public, but leaving clues for himself, or for those who would look closely enough. "Yes," Lily exclaimed. Quiet path. His desire for that inner peace he found in the garden. The revelation was profound. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, whose public image was one of confident swagger and passionate love affairs, was secretly, quietly, expressing a deep spiritual longing, a search for calm amidst the chaos. He wasn't just singing about romance, he was singing about his soul's journey. "The other symbols too," Lily continued, her voice full of discovery. "The looping wave often accompanied the journey of finding his peace. The river's long sigh, the ebb and flow of the searching heart, and the feather, it came with words like release, whisper, lightness. It's about letting go, finding freedom in spirit, transcending the golden trap." Professor Davies walked over to a whiteboard, a rare gesture for him. He began to draw connections, circling words, connecting them with lines. So, in essence, he was creating a lyrical autobiography of his inner life, he mused, a parallel narrative running beneath the surface of his public music. "Exactly," Lily said, her voice softer, now tinged with a deep respect. He poured his heart out, not in explicit diaries or tell-all interviews, but in the very fabric of his art. It's a testament to his intelligence. He found a way to express his true self, even if the world wasn't ready to hear it. The secret meaning wasn't a scandal or a hidden truth about his private life. In the sensational sense, it was far more beautiful, more heartwarming. It was the revelation of a man who, despite unimaginable fame and pressure, clung fiercely to his inner self, communicating his deepest needs and aspirations through a quiet, almost sacred language of his own invention. It changed everything Lily thought she knew about Elvis Presley. He wasn't just a performer. He was a poet, a philosopher, and a soul forever seeking its true north. With the true north revelation firmly in place, Lily and Professor Davies delved deeper into the journal. Each session was like an archaeological dig, uncovering layers of meaning. They found that Elvis had not only embedded secret words, but also hints of an unsung melody, a quiet, almost meditative musical theme that he seemed to associate with these deeply personal lyrics. "Look at this," Lily said one afternoon, pointing to a page. "Next to a star-marked entry that talks about the quiet echo of a sacred tune, there's a small, almost invisible musical notation. It's not a full score, just a few notes." She hummed the short sequence. "A simple, haunting melody. Professor Davies, who had a background in music theory, recognized it. That's a very simple, almost hymn-like progression. A C major arpeggio followed by a descending scale, very common. It's deliberately slow, almost a pause. They found more such fragments. Sometimes it was just a few notes, other times a brief rhythm pattern. They were always associated with the star wave or feather symbols, and always with lyrics that spoke of peace, longing, or spiritual searching. It became clear that Elvis wasn't just writing words. He was composing an internal soundtrack, a quiet, personal anthem for his soul's journey. Couldn't put this kind of melody into his public songs, could he? Lily mused. Imagine Jailhouse Rock suddenly having a slow, meditative interlude. It wouldn't fit the brand. No, Professor Davies agreed, but he could certainly feel it, and he could record it in his mind, for himself. This unsung melody was his private composition, the sonic counterpart to his secret lyrics. They began to identify moments in Elvis's public recordings where these unsung melodies might have almost broken through. Sometimes, in a gospel song, there would be a particularly lingering note or a vocal inflection that suggested a deeper feeling than the written score. Lily even found a bootleg recording of a late-night jam session where Elvis, between takes of a raucous rock song, briefly hummed a melody that chillingly matched one of the journal's fragments. He'd quickly stopped as if catching himself, then laughed and plunged back into the upbeat number. He was trying, Lily whispered, a lump forming in her throat. He was trying to let it out, even just for a moment. This discovery added another layer of poignancy to Elvis's genius. He wasn't just a phenomenal performer who sang songs written by others. He was a deeply sensitive artist who wrestled with his inner world and found intricate ways to express it. The lyrics weren't just poetry. They were accompanied by a silent, yearning soundtrack heard only by him. And now, almost a half-century later, by Lily. The heartwarming aspect of this revelation was immense. It showed Elvis not as a victim of fame, but as someone who actively sought solace and connection, even if it meant creating a hidden realm within his own art. It spoke of his enduring faith, his quiet moments of introspection, his longing for a peace that fame often denied him. He wasn't just putting on a show. He was living a profound inner life, and he documented it in a way no one had ever truly seen. Lily felt an even deeper connection to Elvis. She wasn't just studying a historical figure. She was glimpsing the private world of a complex, brilliant, and deeply human soul. The secret meaning wasn't a dark shadow. It was a beacon of light, showing his resilience and his desperate, beautiful search for his own true north. The unsung melody was the song of his soul finally being heard. The implications of Lily's discovery resonated deeply with Professor Davies. He had spent his career analyzing Elvis's public persona, his musical impact, and the tragic arc of his life. But this journal, and Lily's astute interpretation, presented a completely new dimension. "This changes everything," Professor Davies declared one crisp autumn morning, his voice filled with a quiet reverence. They were in his office, surrounded by the growing mountain of notes, photocopies, and marked-up lyric sheets. "We've always viewed Elvis through the lens of the king, the icon, the celebrity, the tragic figure controlled by the colonel. But this shows a sensitive, incredibly introspective story within his own mind, and documented it through his most personal art." He gestured to the open journal. "These aren't just doodles or discarded thoughts. They're a legacy of peace, a quiet testament to his search for something beyond the superficiality of fame." Lily nodded, a profound sense of privilege washing over her. "It makes him so much more human, doesn't it, knowing that amidst the screaming crowds and the demanding schedule, he was privately wrestling with these deep questions, searching for his true north, and finding solace in something as simple." They discussed how this revelation could redefine Elvis's narrative. No longer just a rock and roll pioneer or a cultural phenomenon, but also a spiritual seeker, a philosopher in his own right, and a coded language only he understood. Until now, the public often focused on his excesses, his struggles, his larger-than-life image, but this showed a tender, vulnerable side. A man yearning for simplicity and connection. Imagine the impact this could have, Professor Davies mused. Not just on music history, but on how we perceive artists in general. How many others, burdened by public expectation, have found similar secret ways to express their authentic selves. It encourages us to look deeper, beyond the surface, beyond the headlines. The most heartwarming aspect was the nature of the secret itself. It wasn't scandalous, not dark or sensational. It was beautiful. It spoke of faith, resilience, and a profound personal quest for inner tranquility. It showed Elvis as a deeply feeling man who clung to hope and meaning even as his public life spun out of control. It's almost like a message to his future self, Lily suggested, or even to Lisa Marie, a way to say, this is who I truly am, this is what I truly sought beyond all the noise. Professor Davies smiled. Yes, a legacy of peace indeed, a guiding star for anyone who struggles to find their authentic self amidst external pressures. His lyrics, once merely popular songs, now resonate with a deeper, almost spiritual truth. They both understood the immense responsibility that came with this discovery. It wasn't something to be sensationalized or exploited. It was a sacred trust. It had to be presented with the utmost respect and sensitivity, honoring Elvis's quiet intention. This wasn't about tearing down a legend. It was about revealing a beautiful hidden layer to his humanity, enriching his legacy beyond measure. King had not only rocked the world, he had also, in his own private way, sought its profoundest peace. The decision of how to reveal Elvis's hidden lyrical world was not taken lightly. Lily and Professor Davies spent weeks debating the best approach. They knew the media would jump on anything labeled Elvis's secret, and they wanted to avoid sensationalism at all costs. Their goal was to honor Elvis's private quest for peace, not to create a new tabloid headline. We must present this as a scholarly discovery, Professor Davies insisted. A profound insight into his creative process and inner life, not a scandalous tell-all, Lily agreed wholeheartedly. It's about his humanity, his spirituality, his yearning for quiet, not about hidden affairs or forgotten children. They decided on a multi-pronged approach, carefully calibrated to reach different audiences. First, they co-authored a detailed academic paper for a prestigious musicology journal. The paper meticulously presented their evidence, the analysis of the symbols, the cross-referencing with his life events, the connection to the hidden garden, and the revelation of the unsung melody. They emphasized the legacy of peace. Theme. Next, they collaborated with the National Music Archive to curate a special temporary exhibit. It would feature digitized images of the journal pages, enlarged excerpts of the secret lyrics, and a beautiful multi-reel display telling the story of the hidden garden and Elvis's quiet search for his true north. They even commissioned a gentle instrumental piece that incorporated the unsung melody. Fragments, inviting visitors to experience the emotion behind the words. The academic paper generated a buzz within scholarly circles. Initial reactions were mixed as expected. Some traditional historians remained skeptical, clinging to the established narrative, but a significant number of scholars and critics were intrigued, praising Lily and Professor Davies for their innovative approach and the profound implications of their findings. When the exhibit opened, the response from the public was even more moving. Long-time Elvis fans, who had always felt a deeper connection to him beyond the glitz, flocked to it. Many were moved to tears. seeing a side of Elvis they instinctively knew existed but had never seen explicitly acknowledged. An elderly woman, her eyes misted over, whispered to Lily at the exhibit opening, "I always felt there was more to him. He had such a gentle soul beneath all that loudness. This just confirms it. He truly wanted peace." Music journalists, initially looking for scandal, found themselves writing thoughtful articles about Elvis's unexpected death. One prominent music critic wrote, "Lily Jensen and Professor Davies have revealed an entirely new Elvis, a poet, a philosopher, a soul perpetually seeking solace amidst the storm." His music, already iconic, now resonates with a quiet, profound spirit, and it was beautiful. The secret meaning wasn't a bombshell that shattered his image. It was a revelation that enriched it, making him more relatable, more human, and ultimately, more beloved. It wasn't about taking away from the legend, but about adding a layer of incredible depth and understanding. The public had finally been given a glimpse into the true heart of Elvis Presley, a heart that yearned for peace and expressed it in the quiet language of his own beautiful secret lyrics. The revelation of Elvis Presley's hidden lyrical meanings rippled through the music world and beyond. It sparked a renewed interest in his lesser-known works and encouraged fans to listen to his most popular songs with fresh ears, searching for the subtle echoes of his true north. Scholars began to re-evaluate his entire artistic output, seeing him not just as a cultural icon, but as a complex artist who navigated fame with a quiet, resilient inner life. Lily Jensen found herself at the center of this new understanding. Her inchy pale discovery earned her significant recognition. She was invited to speak at conferences, contribute to documentaries, and even consult on a permanent exhibit at Graceland dedicated to the inner world of Elvis. Her career as a music historian, still in its nascent stages, had already soared to unexpected heights. Professor Davies, immensely proud of his protégé, often joked that Lily had taught him more about Elvis than all his years of academic study combined. Their collaboration blossomed, leading to further research into how other artists might have subtly embedded personal messages within their public works, opening up an entirely new field of lyrical analysis. But for Lily, the most profound impact was personal. She no longer saw historical figures as distant, untouchable icons, but as deeply human beings, with inner struggles and quiet dreams just like anyone else. Taught her to look beyond the obvious, to listen to the whispers, and to trust her own intuition. She often visited a quiet community garden in Memphis, now experiencing a gentle resurgence of interest, though it remained largely peaceful. The old man, Mr. Henderson, had become a friend, sharing more memories of Elvis as a quiet, thoughtful young man who found solace among the flowers. The garden, once just a physical place, now symbolized a universal human longing for peace and authenticity. The unsung melody that Lily had pieced together from the journal fragments gained a quiet life of its own. It was featured in the Graceland exhibit, a simple, haunting tune that seemed to embody Elvis's yearning. Musicians, inspired by the story, began incorporating the melody into their own compositions, a quiet tribute to the king's hidden sensitivity. It became a symbol of finding harmony within oneself, even amidst external chaos. Elvis's legacy, once a blend of adoration and sorrow, now resonated with a deeper, more hopeful note. He wasn't just the voice that shook the world. He was the soul that sought its quiet harbor, leaving a profound message of peace embedded in the very heart of his music. His secret wasn't a burden, it was a gift. Lily, standing on the threshold of a promising career, often thought about that dust-covered box, that worn leather journal, and the quiet conversation she had initiated with the king. She hadn't just revealed a secret, she had helped to complete a story, adding a beautiful, heartwarming harmony to the legendary life of Elvis Presley. And in doing so, she had found her own true north, guided by the quiet echoes of an unsung melody.